while we're having a show today, and I have you ladies in such a good energy mood and ready to be such a jumpy mood, let's talk about our good friend Tulsi Gabbard, because I think we all, like I said, we're eating crow today a little bit. Well, I'm eating crow, right?
God, how many times did I defend her? Oh my God.
Yeah. So did I. Caitlin Johnson, Misty Winston, Fiorella. We all did. But here's the thing. Last time that she ran and Bernie Sanders ran, they didn't have a pasta or somebody else in their face asking them this important question about Israel-Palestine. They got away scot-free. I remember all the times I was in front of her and all the questions I asked her. And even when I got close to Bernie, too, as well. Like, how did we not ask about this situation over here? Because a lot of people suspected it would be something like this. Cheese Slice, let's go to it and get it going. Let's see. She was on Fox News. Let's just play it because she talks about it, so we don't have to read it. Let's just play the video and check it out from here. Here she is on Laura Engel.
I don't know if Kamala knows what she's up to, but the reality here is when you look at things like what Representative Cori Bush is saying, what the squad is saying, what so many of these other people are saying who are accusing Israel of committing a genocide, it is the height of hypocrisy, because they're apologists and supporters of these Islamist Hamas terrorists who are calling for a genocide, the extermination of all Jews, not just in Israel, but around the world. And we're seeing this being carried out by these violent mobs and threats and other things that are happening against Jewish people literally around the world. And the worst part is they're doing this under the guise of, well, we care about innocent people and we don't want people to get hurt, when in fact, they are in essence supporting and apologizing for the barbaric actions of Hamas against innocent women, children, and civilians.
I called it creating the monster, like they're Dr. Frankenstein. And now the monster in their progressive wing is turning against them. But they're trying to pretend like this is kind of a shocking development. It's not a shocking development. No. This has always been there, but it's also deeply anti-American, is it not?
It is, and it is against the very foundational principles and values of who we are as a country. These Democrats, they have called people like me an Islamophobe for many years just for speaking the truth about radical Islam, about the threat that this Islamism poses to the freedom and peace and security of the American people and people around the world.
Well, do you believe, as do some of these Republicans in the Senate, that we should be bringing in more Afghan refugees? We brought in, 80, 90,000. We didn't vet any of them. I'm sure some of them are great people and helped us in Afghanistan. But do we have 80,000 interpreters or drivers? I mean, I don't think so.
There are many, unquestionably. Yeah. But just like we're so concerned about Biden's open borders and the fact that we've got millions of people coming in who are not vetted in any way, shape, or form, who have not been checked.
But they don't share our values, to Nigel Farage's point as to what you're seeing in England.
Right.
This is, they say, you can't call it a clash of civilizations. Why not? It is a clash of civilization. No women's rights, no belief in pluralism, the dignity of the individual, free expression, none of that.
No,
that's not on the table.
No, and that is the hypocrisy of seeing these, the LGBTQIA activists out there holding and waving the trans flag combined with the Palestinian flags. Like that's
a new level.
They don't know and understand what this Islamist ideology is, this radical Islam ideology where they actually want to kill people. They want to kill those people specifically.
They have to tie Ukraine to Israel because they know Ukraine
won't stand on its own.
It's not
that funding and again, they're trying to cheat the American people through their representatives by saying, okay, you support and you want to stand with Israel. Well, guess what? We're going to sneak in all of this other money that we're going to take out of your pocket and your bank account to go and support something that increasingly Americans are understanding.
It's not
this proxy war against Russia is pushing us closer to nuclear war, and it's not in our best national security interest to do that.
Oh my Lord! I have a question over here. Ladies, is there not bullshit in the Bible and the Torah? I mean, isn't there stuff justifying?
Can I just bang my head against a wall right now?
Is there not stuff there justifying slavery, casting stones, human sacrifice? I mean, does that mean that all Jews and Christians are also radically crazy too as well?
Oh my God! Pastor, 4,000 babies are dead. Babies under the age. Most of them. In fact, the last time they voted, these children weren't even alive. I mean, it's the gross lack of humanity. I feel like I can't understand the timeline we're living in. I can't understand how it makes me want to cry. I'm so glad I'm in Russia, and sorry, America, but
this just needs a basic conversation right now too, to understand, right? Like, listen, I'm not against religion. If you want to, if you're a good Christian and you want to, praise Jesus, then go praise Jesus. I got no problem with that. You know what I'm saying? And it's a common sense, modern day approach to understand that you take the good things from religion, the great things, the love, the life, the treating your neighbors kindly, and you leave all the bad shits behind, the crazy stuff that's in there, because all the Abrahamic religions got it and stuff like that. And the same can be done with our political ideology too. You can take the good things from communism and capitalism and leave the bad shit behind. But this right here coming from her was so disgusting, man. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how disappointed I am in this.
Yeah, and she kept putting herself out as the anti-war. Remember, she came to the rally where I spoke in Washington, D.C. She was one of the key speakers.
I was there with you.
Rage Against the War Machine, anti-war rally, anti-war. It wasn't, anti-war, unless we don't really like your fucking religion. And then let's bomb the shit out of you and all your children who don't even have a religion or a political belief because they're babies.
Yeah.
They're babies.
Well, fam, do you think this is about her religion, or, you know what I'm saying? Because when it comes to Vivek, I sometimes wonder his hate for China, right, and hate for communism is cultural. Do you think this is about her religion?
I do think there is a cultural element to Tulsi's Hindu, aspect to it. Because there's a lot of Hindus that really despise Muslims, and there is that aspect to it. But I also think it's an opportunist idea, because the reality is it's the popular stance to take if you're trying to infiltrate the Republican Party, if you're trying to get those Republican votes she has been trying to get for the last few fucking years since she left Congress. So I do think she is looking at that, and she is targeting those votes. And the vast majority of these right wingers, as we've seen, who were pro, or against sending money to Ukraine, have flipped and turned into being pro sending money to Israel and being Israel first, even though they won't admit that they're Israel first. But they have exactly become that. And so this is exactly where she's going, and she knows exactly what she's doing. I think she's going to get back into politics, and I think she's going to go back down this route. But it is really disappointing for people like us who did defend her when it came to her anti-war stances against the majority of the squad, or against the majority of people who said, she's just a regular war criminal. Well, now she's proving herself to be exactly that, just with a different team, right? And so it's really unnerving to see her use the whole exact thing that was used 20-something years ago against people, against Muslims in Iraq, and say these are just a bunch of jihadist terrorists. They're not. Hamas is a resistance group. And if you're going to be anti-war, you're going to try to avoid that. Even if you thought there were Hamas members that were terrorists, you wouldn't justify bombing a refugee camp, bombing hospitals, bombing schools full of children and women. You wouldn't justify that if you thought that maybe we could stop and have a ceasefire. You would advocate for peace first. But it seems that she's trying to garner support from a certain contingent of the American public, and that's exactly what she's doing. And anybody not calling her out at this point is a complete hypocrite. And this is what I said about Kennedy as well. I think what Kennedy has done, what she has done, has been dividing people further into smaller and smaller factions, where we completely lend ourselves powerless, and we can't come together because we are being divided and lend powerless. And so it's really sad, because these are supposed to be the people that are fighting against the establishment. They're literally going right along, not just her, but Bernie Sanders and every other progressive are going right along with it. Even if they give good lip service, like some of the squad members, they end up voting right in line with the establishment when it comes to this issue. Is disgusting. And this is the first time I'm seeing a lot of American citizens going out in the streets and protesting being completely and entirely divorced from what their government is doing. And it's still not enough because we don't have the power in the United States to change anything unless we take more radical actions. And if I say further, I will be taken into prison and completely thrown into a dungeon.
No, you can
because
share in Moscow.
no, it doesn't matter. If I go back home, it's like, this is ridiculous. Like, but what I am saying, if you get my drift, is in order for there to be any fucking change, there is going to have to be a radical shift in the way the entire government structure exists. Because right now, Biden's not in charge. Kamala's not in charge. Who's in charge? It's the defense industry, the intelligence apparatus. Blinken is shaking in his boots, and all these other Jake Sullivans, and they're all shaking in their boots. They're trying to manufacture consent for this. It's not working. They're going to try.
They're failing big time. And one of the things
they're failing.
Said.
No, I was going to say they're not only failing, but bear in mind why I'm here, and maybe some of your family doesn't know. I'm here in Moscow, Russia. I came here for a week and I ended up having to stay because the US government, I was about to testify against Joe Biden about what he did to me personally, but I was actually about to be on the whistleblower committee to talk about the weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI against American citizens. So I was one of those who was going to be testifying. And before I could do so, I was being told that I would be arrested. I would be arrested and put in a hole, probably in Virginia, until after the election or longer, and threatened with charges. And there's a sealed case against me and possibly an indictment. I'm here in exile, so I got asylum from Moscow, Russia. I was speaking out against the proxy war that the US and NATO is fighting against Russia via Ukraine. And I was very vocal about that, on top of the vocal about what Biden did and his corruption. And for that, I got targeted, like many other Americans, like January 6th Americans, who right now there's someone who's in solitary confinement for months, which is considered torture under the UN Charter. And this is what we're dealing with. And so I don't know, the last 3 weeks of just bombing the shit out of people to oblivion, to where whole families, extended families of Palestinians are now obliterated from the registry. They no longer exist. And then there's the intelligence records that show this was the plan all along by Israel, by the US. And these are the people running our world. And this is Tulsi Gabbard, whom I defended. And I admit, I defended her.
We all did.
Yeah. When Hillary Clinton came out and called her a Russian asset, I defended her and thought she was cool. I met her at the Rage Against the War Machine. I really thought she was anti-war, and I was so blown away. But Laura, can I tell a little story about Laura Ingraham, the little gossipy story for your fam?
Go ahead.
Getting my makeup done for a Fox interview. And one of the makeup artists told me that Laura Ingraham is actually really horrible. And she had false eyelashes put on, and she got frustrated because they weren't the exact amount of false eyelashes. And she ripped them off and threw them in the makeup artist's face. Anyway, I just wanted to share this story. These are not.
Well, the thing we have to talk about real quick before we put a bow on this section is, okay, the thing that just drives me crazy, we have somebody in the chat there, Negus, I think he looks like a Trump guy, but he puts this, Biden funded Iran who fund Hamas. And he before that said, vote for Trump. It wasn't just Iran. How about this one? Who's this over here? Anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of Palestine state to support bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas. He told his Likud party and the Knesset members in 2019, this is part of our strategy to isolate the Palestinians in Gaza from the Palestinians in the West Bank. And that's Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. I mean, there's so many records of America funding some of the most radical groups, everything from the Mujahideen to ISIS. I mean, this is ridiculous. And for Tulsi to sit there and say that and talk about radical Islam, well, who's funding it? Who's funding it? I mean, are you kidding me? That's the thing that just blows my mind, because we know that she knows. Go ahead, fam.
No, I mean, everything you said. I mean, she knows exactly what it says. And this makes us go back to where Tulsi came from, right? Her relationships and her ability to just go into these circles of independent and anti-war arenas and then act like she was anti-war. Remember, she didn't really answer very well when it came to my questions from the global South, when it came to Bolivia, when it came to questions about that, because the global South is a way to really test them. And she never answered that. And when it came to the Middle East, she was very much like, well, a dove, but then when it comes to the Middle East, she was like a hawk, right? When it comes to terrorism. So she always left that open. And I think now we're seeing that come out. And it's really sad because, again, like when she was right, when she said the right things against Hillary Clinton, like you mentioned, we defended her, and that's fine. But at this moment, I think we are seeing that every single political, star or politician like Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy, any of these people that showed some sort of promise, they have exposed themselves to be pro-war, depending on whatever team they are fighting for. And it's disgusting because it's not even about them being just pro-Israeli. It is about the fact that this issue with Israel-Palestine affects so much more than Israel and Palestine. We are about to be in World War III because of the stances of these politicians and of these people that are in charge that are willing to justify genocide by using this lie that Hamas are a bunch of terrorists or not. But even if they were, it doesn't justify you bombing a bunch of civilians to try to get at one terrorist, even if they were, but they're not. And that's the thing. And we could go back to all the memes that we've seen of children growing up, being birthed into this occupation, into this concentration camp. I would be far worse, and I said this yesterday, I would be far worse than Hamas has ever been to Israelis. I would destroy them at every single facet that I could, because they would have destroyed my entire family, my entire livelihood. I wouldn't have a normal ability to exist. And if they take that away from me, if anybody took that away from me now, I would be far worse than Hamas has been to Israelis. And that's a reality a lot of people don't want to talk about and they don't want to say.
Mark Sloboda said the same thing. Yeah.
Because it's insane.
He goes, and that's he's a sweetheart. By the way, where's he at? Why isn't he with you hanging out tonight? Where's Mark Sloboda when you need him, fam?
He's in Oblast. He's in Oblast?
Yeah, he's in Oblast.
I put this up here because me and Tara got a chance to speak at the Rage Against the War Machine. Now, that was a collaboration and something I've been working with for a long time. Fiorella can tell you, Tara, that I would always make this joke. I don't know if you know this, Papasta's a civil liberties guy. And at one point, I started calling myself a leftist libertarian, not because I was ever part of the Libertarian Party, but I wanted to emphasize that I thought there was always a bond. And I met these people through the Tulsi Gabbard campaign in New Hampshire, guys like Reed Coverdale, guys like the Jackman brothers, and at Rage Against the War Machine, when I got off the stage, the first person to congratulate me and give me a hug was Scott Horton. Well, a lot of the people who gave us shit like, how could you work with these libertarians? They're racist and this Mises Caucus is so bad. We're not going to join you guys. We're going to do our own thing. This is bad. Well, it comes around to Israel and Palestine, and who's with us right now? A lot of the libertarians. Front and center going, this is wrong, let's go. And Scott Horton has been on a tear, chasing little Ben Shapiro down, and Ben is avoiding him because Ben only wants to debate, college freshman girls, and that's the extent of he can't go any further. And here's Scott Horton's opinion with Reed Coverdale. Reed Coverdale still wants to have a show with Fam to talk about capitalism versus communism because he saw the Clint Russell, and Clint Russell's been amazing with hundreds of thousands of views. Let's just play the video and let Scott Horton hear what Scott Horton has to say, because this guy has been on fire, fam.
America is Alice in Wonderland, completely nutso, and Tulsi Gabbard is standing still and being sane, right? And saying, this is crazy. We should not be doing this.
Right.
Okay? But that means that she's only halfway to peace. Halfway. Not more than half. Right? She's just saying we should be fighting the enemy instead of fighting our enemy's enemy.
Right.
But she's not saying it's George Bush and Bill Clinton's fault that Ronald Reagan's friends are now our enemies, and we should call this whole thing off, and their violence against us will evaporate away anyway once we're not the dominant power in the Middle East, which we've got no right to be. She doesn't talk like that because she doesn't think like that. That's not her position. Her position is one of a Democrat who's a hawk, but who is smart and not a tool of special interests who override her understanding of who her enemy is, if that is clear enough.
That was 3 years ago. That was 3 years ago he said that stuff, fam. He knew, he saw, and he's talked about this before. He said she's never really been anti-war. So I'm very curious to see what he has to say now that this video has come out. But that was 3 years ago he mentioned that. And he said this to me when we were talking. He's like, no, you know, in Vegas, like, yeah, she was never really ever anti-war. You know what I'm saying? She was for droning, you know, and she was cool with that. And she seems to have this anti-Sunni jihadist kind of mentality that she's maybe picked up from her time in Iraq when there was a lot of improvised IEDs on the road, and she saw some of her soldiers, fellow soldiers die. But she never shook it. She's always had it, and she just brought it to the table right here and showed her whole ass face over here now. So go ahead, Tara. You want to say something? I can see it.
No, like I mean, you know, and she is, you know, close. Like, you know, who also lifted her a lot was Tucker Carlson, and she and Tucker Carlson right now are on opposite ends because he's not. Now he's being careful not to criticize Israel too much, but he is anti all of this going on. So, and he's a libertarian, I believe. That's kind of his leaning. I don't know his politicals ish, but like whatever it is, he's anti-establishment for real. And of course, he got fired, and now he's like doing his thing. But like, he lifted Tulsi, so I'm wondering what he's thinking now, because he's saying the opposite of what she's saying right now publicly. He's saying, "Oh, we're going to send $12 billion to Israel. Really, really, we're going to." And America's economy is tanking. But this is the thing, Pasta. We are going to World War III, and I cannot emphasize this. We're in it. We're in it. The Russian, you know, government. There was a member of the Russian government yesterday who made the comment, "We are in World War III." Iran has sort of acknowledged it. Other countries are. This is what the U.S. wanted. They wanted a hot war with Iran all along. All along. Yeah. They've taken a third of Syria, and all of this, and I'm sorry, but all of this, in my opinion, is about oil and gas and Western hegemony, because the Western empire is falling. The economic is collapsing. People are dumping the dollar, and this is the last ditch attempt because of losing the proxy war against Russia and Ukraine. And in 2019, I said, if Joe Biden's elected, he'll take us to war with Russia, because the people that he brought with him, the team that he brought with him, I've known some of them, they worked for Obama. They are hawks. They believe a limited nuclear war is possible. They believe this. And that is what's so frightening. And now, if you read on my Twitter account, I put this down. The Department of Defense has functioned, and this went all over the press. They are now doing the gravity bomb, the gravity nuclear bomb, which is 24 times more powerful than Hiroshima. Why in the world is that something that we want in our arsenal? But that is what the U.S. has put forward. They already have done it. It's already here, and they're getting ready. Where are they going to use this? You tell me, fam, because like this is horrible. Yeah.
They keep tipping their hat off. Fam, if you got anything else to say too, and Tara, just really quickly too, the nuclear weapons, the chemical weapons, when they hold up a completely laminated, oh, look what we took off a Hamas leader over here, and it says in English, it says shit like they want us to, they're going to try to go in there and gas the tunnels out. I think that's the plan. I don't know if they're going to be successful, because I bet you freaking Hamas has big fans that are going to blow back the shit right into the IDF. Or they're not ready for this ground attack. They're not ready for tunnel warfare, and they need to do it to save face, to excuse all the bombing of, because they're losing the PR game and all the carpet bombing. So they need to go in soon, but they're wasting. They're running out of time. Fam, do you have anything to say? Because what we're going to do is I got a song planned for a quick 3-minute break so we can grab a glass of water or anything like that. Anything else to say about Tulsi really quick?
Well, not necessarily about Tulsi. I mean, I think a lot of us admit it, like we regret defending her, but I also do think that defending her and like looking at Bernie really led us to where we are now, and really led our evolution to understanding this is why, Pasta, I didn't like Kennedy, because I could see he was portraying the same type of bullshit. And it was never just about Israel-Palestine, but what that could lead to. the consequences of being pro-Israel, what that means for Iran, what that means for Syria, what that means for Yemen. Yemen, Syria, Iran have been on the same side, Lebanon, of the Palestinian resistance. What it means to be a warmonger in the Middle East is so much greater than just the issue of Israel and Palestine, beyond, of course, what us humanitarian people feel when it comes to the loss of nearly 10,000 Palestinian lives, which should have never happened. And it didn't start, of course, on October 7th. It started 75 years plus ago. But that's why a lot of us were so passionate about how we felt about Kennedy. And I want to reiterate that to people who, blocked me, who hated me, who ended friendships with me over Robert F. Kennedy. I welcome your apologies in my DMs. I welcome and like I will say this because I'm saying, maybe we shouldn't have defended Tulsi at those times. Maybe we shouldn't have voted for Bernie and said, well, Bernie has a chance, blah, blah, blah. But if I can admit that, and if a lot of us can admit maybe we shouldn't have supported these idiotic politicians who at the end of the day are sellouts, maybe you can admit that you shouldn't have supported this one. This is why it's so much bigger than Israel-Palestine. And this is why this is such a big issue. And at the end of the day, I mean, when it comes to Scott Horton, I don't agree with a lot of what he says, even some of his stances on this whole issue. He has tried to blame Hamas as being this sort of terrorist force. I don't agree with him on that.
We didn't agree with him about Russia too, right? We didn't agree with him about that.
Against Hamas that hasn't just been, there's a lot of things that are being uncovered. And again, I'm still in the way of writing an article on all of this because there's so much information coming in about all the propaganda about this rave festival, about how a lot of these people that were Israelis on October 7th were shot by friendly Israeli fire rather than by Hamas. A lot of people don't want to admit that, but it's so easy for us to go with, well, Hamas is a terrorist group. Hamas is this. And that has been the red herring used to dehumanize Palestinians and allow us to think that it's okay to shoot Palestinians. That it's okay to justify the bombing of schools, the bombing of hospitals, and the bombing of residential buildings, that if Russia did that, we would completely be condemning Russia.
Absolutely.
So that's all.
But like Matt Ehret, like Scott Horton, they talk about how Israel funded Hamas against the PLO back in the days. And I just want to say to this guy over here, or girl, Negus, or whoever, this person, Islamic Arab supremacy salute killing a black Ethiopian Eritrean Jews, fuck Palestine, the Arab supremacy enslaving black lives in Libya and yada, 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 fuck Islam and Arabs. Now, listen, I'm going to have to cut your feed if you're going to keep doing that because you can get us taken down. But I just want to remind you really quickly, those bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima were dropped by Christian bombs, right? It's not about religion. Religion is always the excuse. This is something more. So please stop with your fucking bullshit. Israeli bombs, Jewish bombs, right? They're killing more right now today than any freaking Muslim bomb out there. So let's not look at the scoreboard. This is when people try to say Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. Well, if you just look at the killings from 2012 to 2020, according to the UN, it's way disproportionate. You got Palestinians killed to the tune of almost 6,000, while 250 Israelis are killed. And they have an open-air prison, an actual concentration camp inside their country. So please, I don't want to fucking hear it.